Hello everyone, welcome to Community Connection, your window to the world around you. She's known as the People's Advocate. She was a former state representative and is now the Community Partnerships and Development Director for Sugar Law Center. I am so pleased to have Rashida Tlaib here at WDHT Tv. Welcome, Rashida, to Community Connection.
Thank you so much, Siham, for having me.
Absolutely. I've known you forever, and you have just been there, done that, and you do it with such grace and with such focus and with such tenacity as well, and I love that about you. You're no nonsense kind of person. You, in the state senate, your two major priorities was public safety and education, and you've done so many things with that in terms of legislation, producing funding. Talk to us about that and tell us what your focal points were.
Yeah, I mean, I was really excited when I first got elected in 2008. And when you get elected, the next kind of step is, what committees do you want to serve on? And so I was very honored and pleased that I requested to be on appropriations, which is really the committee that controls the different budgets for various departments, including that of Michigan State Police, that for the judiciary folks. And so it was really my role on that committee that I was able to, make a difference and trying to come up with really fiscally responsible budgeting for various programs. And we can come up with all kinds of ideas, but if it's not funded, it can never really happen. Exactly.
Absolutely.
So I was really excited. I helped start the first ever community court program. So it was actually the community that came up with the idea. Detroit Hispanic Development Corporation in Southwest Detroit was phenomenal in coming up with this really wraparound services kind of approach to those that had to go through the court system. And it's been successful across the country, and I was able to secure a significant amount of money to actually launch that community court program, which is very successful right now.
Absolutely, and it's still going on
Yes.
at this point. I know you ran for state senator as well against Virgil Smith, and that was because of your term limits as well.
Yeah. Michigan has, I don't know if Siham, a lot of listeners should know this. I mean, Michigan has one of the most egregious term limits. I mean, after 3 terms, which is about 6 years that you serve in the state house, you are getting another new state representative. And then, the next obviously step would be state senate. And so, yeah, I had to run against an incumbent, somebody that was currally serving. It was a very difficult
well-known
race.
As well.
Yeah. I think his father was in politics for almost 3 decades, and he has the same exact name. And a lot of people underestimate name recognition, but it was really, really pretty special going door to door when people thought I was running against the father, and I said, no, it's the son. Yeah. So
absolutely. And term limits, I think everybody has an opinion on that,
Sure.
but I think when you have a state representative or any public official that's working, making a difference and affecting policy, and then they have to go on to something else, I think that's really a disruption of the continuity of progress. And so, not all states do that, but here in Michigan we do.
It's hard because I always tell people if it wasn't for term limits, I probably would have never been in office too. So I think there needs to be a balance, and I think 6 years is too short, and I think that is something everyone agrees on. What you can look is other states. Other states, it's more than 10 years that you can be a state in the state assembly or state house. And so looking at different models, again, we're one of the kind of the worst system now for term limits, and I think it should be reviewed. Getting rid of it, I don't know if I'm ready to say let's get rid of it.
There needs to be a balance,
Yeah,
absolutely. And you don't want career politicians, you want
Absolutely,
new blood.
yeah.
So definitely there needs to be a balance.
That's the worry,
there.
and that's, I think, why people supported term limits at the beginning.
I know that you work with Take on Hate, but I want to ask you one question before we start talking about that. What is your biggest accomplishment?
Yeah.
What is the one thing that you are the most proud of that you have done?
I mean, I think the one thing that just was always my heart and my soul was into creating a neighborhood service center. A lot of elected officials have so-called district offices, but I took it up a notch and raised my own, money from my supporters, and folks would send the smallest amount of money, and I was able to raise $40,000 a year to run a neighborhood service center where folks could come in and get day-to-day things addressed. Legislation takes 10, 15 years before it impacts people's lives. But my God, if you're having issues with DTE, or if you've got a caseworker not calling you back, or, you know, there's issues going on in your school system, and you want to have a face-to-face with my team that your tax dollars are paying for, you shouldn't have to drive 80 miles to Lansing to do that. And that's where all my bill ideas came from. I mean, a lot of people say the tenacity and stuff, but when you have, because the human contact, when I actually was able to see residents' faces and their eyes and the tears and the pain that they were going through, it motivated me and inspired me to work harder. And so the Neighborhood Service Center, which continues on with Representative Chang, who took over after I was term limited, and we named it after a phenomenal social activist. She's a social justice advocate named Mary Turner, so now it's called the Mary Turner Center for Advocacy. And it continues to help people with poverty issues, with just a number of day-to-day issues that I think are really critical.
And it's wonderful, too, that your predecessor actually moved on and kept that going.
She truly believes in it as well.
Absolutely. And when you're there, grassroots, and you see what people are dealing with, and it's, you know, one-on-one, there's such a difference. And then you see where the loopholes are and what the need is. And that's probably where you, and you said that, got your ideas.
It keeps you focused.
Policy.
I mean, lobbyists and the ugliness of Lansing can really get to you. But when I walked in the service center, I always tell people it was kind of like the Seinfeld show. I had the different characters that kind of came in, but they grounded me. You know, they reminded me why I wanted to run, why I had to sacrifice so much time and effort towards my family, my young children. They remind me that I was there for the right reason. And again, very much inspiring every single day I was able to work there.
So politician getting rid of bureaucracy and red tape.
Going to what I call service politics, you know? Yeah, just go back to the basics, servicing people.
You are now the Community Partnerships and Development Director for the Sugar Law Center. You are a lawyer by trade as well. Does that keep you close to what you would like to do and what you love to do?
Yeah, I mean, Sugar Law Center, which I love, is a national organization, but it's headquartered in Detroit. And a lot of people see like the stadium and the new bridge to Canada. These are great development projects that are coming to our state. But we want to make sure the neighborhoods that host it, the negative impact may be the truck traffic, may be, you know, I mean, a lot of folks think, well, hockey's so great and we're going to have a stadium. But I said, you know, crowds come in and public safety becomes an issue. Is that the neighborhood organization have a seat at the table to make the decision around how they address the negative impacts. And so at Sugar Law Center, I'm continuing my movement towards what we call the community benefits process. And this is a legally binding contract that you have with the host community. It does wonders across the country, and it really makes sure that the local community and residents get access to jobs, that we're dealing with public safety issues, and more importantly, and for me, that's really critical, is environmental impact. You know, 1 of 5 children in my neighborhood have asthma, and we may house an international bridge to Canada, but people don't realize 10,000 trucks roll through the community because of that bridge to Canada. And how do we make sure that we're protecting our children and that their impact of quality?
I know
so I work at Sugar Law on those issues.
You went one-on-one basically with that whole thing with Matty Maroon, and you know, he really was no match for you.
Yeah, Matty was a bit upset he couldn't buy me.
Yeah.
I think I was only in office for 6 months, and he launched a recall effort, helped fund a recall effort trying to remove me from office. I was young. I was dumbfounded and
you know you're
so
doing
scared.
Right.
Yeah, but I was really scared. I mean, I get sworn in January, and by June, I think, or July, this multi-billionaire is and it's only because I said you should do an environmental impact study, a more aggressive study for your new bridge, and he was. Because his permit got suspended. And it was primarily because residents came, and I told them about the hearing, and Congressman Dingell was phenomenal in partnering with me to get that hearing, and people were able to voice their opinion, and that got the attention of the U.S. Coast Guard, who said, you know, I think there are some environmental issues that need to be addressed. And so we were happy, and from that we launched We Have a Right to Breathe campaign, again giving a voice to so many residents that thought, you know, how can we go up against a billionaire? And we won. I mean, yeah, we did, and we continued it on for the next 5 years.
The Koch brothers.
Oh, I know. When I thought I had the worst ever billionaire, I always say he's a neighbor, but this multi-billion-dollar company corporation is our neighbor. yet again, we had these folks come in and, people see Marathon and they drive over 75 and they don't realize Marathon was producing what we call petroleum coke now, the expansion, and it kind of looks like NASA. I always tell people when they see it, but those products have to be stored somewhere. Yeah, and it got literally dumped without permission, without permits. I was shocked. And they still wouldn't give us a sample, so I was able to kind of sneak over a couple of piles and got a sample and allowed an independent organization called the Ecology Center in Ann Arbor tested, and sure enough, there was
the
impact.
Levels were very high.
There was a woman that was 8 months pregnant, and they found it on her kitchen counter because the stuff was blowing everywhere, and it was a really hot summer, and I just, when people say you're so passionate, I kind of got angry, and I was really upset that the Koch brothers who purchased this from Marathon, the product, the petroleum coke, could just dump it there uncovered and allow this black dust to fly through into people's homes, into the streets where people are standing waiting for the bus.
Children breathing this stuff.
I mean, people were complaining about headaches. It was awful.
So what was the end result of that?
The end result was Mayor Bing at that time did finally step up and ask them to remove the products, and that's what they did. Now we have a different company that's dumping what they call Coke Breeze. I said, you can call it milkshake. I don't care. There is an impact and it needs to be addressed.
Still does the same thing.
Yeah, and I think the Duggan administration is staying on top of that.
Sure, I think they're doing a great job in taking on a lot of those issues in a very
aggressive way,
focused, aggressive way. Absolutely. You are now the campaign director for the Take on Hate program, and we attended a wonderful event. Not to mention the press conference that was done not too long ago as well to bring this to fruition. A lot of talk. It's a 2-year program, from what I understand, but right now it seems it's taking off, and it's in different cities. Talk to us about the idea. Of course, I mean, it's obvious as to why this is definitely needed, especially with things that have occurred within the last couple of years, and especially since 9/11. So very well needed. What was the focal point of creating Take on Hate? I mean, there's a lot of different organizations, interfaith programs, organizations that address discrimination and stereotypes and what have you. But what's different about this, and why the need for this?
Yeah, the campaign to Take on Hate is national. It's a national movement. We have organizers in Chicago, New York, San Francisco, and Detroit. And it really came about because there's this beautiful network called the Network for Arab American Communities. And if you look at the membership, they are...
And that's a program of access, which is the American Community Center for
Economic
and
Dearborn.
Social Services.
And Access, wanted to bring together a lot of these storefront community-based organization. I mean, these are the organizations providing mental health, employment training, youth programming. Some are even doing cultural events. So many different phenomenal services that I think are really important to help neighborhoods thrive and communities thrive. And even directly, even if you are not getting those services, if somebody else is doing well, the neighborhood does well as a whole. And what they encountered, and it wasn't after 9/11, it got worse. Obviously, as things, not technically in our country, right, but things that are a global crisis around terror and around fear and around violence. And it started, obviously, resonating into our streets, though, and people were victims of hate crimes and not reporting it. Even when hate crime was reported in the media, there was no human impact factor to it. What I say is that Take on Hate tries to humanize the victims of hate crimes. And the result of some of the hate rhetoric that you see, even on some of the national folks that are running for president, the things that they say and how that results in people getting hurt. And it's extremely painful, even as an Arab American, raising these 2 beautiful Arab American boys, I worry about how they're being perceived by others based on what these statements, coming out of some of these national candidates. And so the campaign to Take on Hate is really about asking people to rise up and speak out when they see people saying things that are very discriminatory and bigotry, very bigoted. And we have been able to work with African American community, the Jewish community, the Latino community, because all of us have seen this kind of impact of one person getting all this national...
Hate is non-discriminatory.
Oh, it is, and it's very hurtful. And so we talk about our core American values and the fact that when we go after somebody based on their faith and ethnicity, it hurts us as America. Like, it hurts who we are, and allowing that hate and violence to dictate to us how we're supposed to function. It's just, completely, really, to me, it jeopardizes tremendous.
Values.
Yeah, it jeopardizes kind of the essence of that. What makes us really wonderful. I mean, I always tell people there's no, Canadian dream or German dream. There's American dream. You never hear any other country kind of talk about this, and that's what makes us special. But people are getting hurt by this hate rhetoric. People are getting hurt by the lack of knowledge and information that's out there. And even though they may not want to talk to you and I, Siham, as Arab Americans, they're talking to other people that don't know enough about us. That the contributions that we're making, the fact that we really care about education, we care about other things. When people say, I'm really proud that my state representative is Arab American and she cares about these issues, changing kind of the conversation, but you don't hear enough about that. And so Take on Hate is challenging the media and trying to tell those stories and trying to really humanize the impact of hate rhetoric.
Right now, the concept of you're not American.
Oh, yeah.
I've been seeing that so much more lately, and that has been the conversation.
Yeah.
So what is Take on Hate? What's the platform to address that kind of thing? You see the girls with the hijab,
Yeah.
and they're younger girls too, and this is going to affect them throughout their lives.
It already is, yeah.
And it is affecting people, and that gives them a sense of, well, who am I? Do I belong here?
Yeah.
And they're Americans. So how do we address that? How does Take on Hate address that?
I mean, I can tell you, I've talked to activists and people that have been working in the African American community and even in the Latino community, and they struggle with this too. They are still not feeling this welcomeness that we feel. But I think we're allowing a minority amount of voices to tell us who's supposed to be American.
And that's usually what's heard, unfortunately.
I know, and I'm glad that Campaign to Take on Hate tries to go beyond mainstream media, doing things on social media and trying to visualize, the beautiful colors and diversity of America. But it was hard. I mean, even at the forum, and you were there, we had a wonderful forum with Chief Haddad, Police Chief Haddad, talking about safety and civil rights issues. And so many of the people had to first say that they were American before they spoke. It's hard because they feel
you have to qualify yourself.
Exactly.
And nobody
trying to prove themselves as
that.
Patriotic as this or that. It's hard because no matter how much they're saying it, they don't truly believe they're being welcomed truly by the rest or their community, their neighborhood. And we're struggling with that. We constantly struggle with that. But I think one of my friends, African American leader, said, when you even say integration, Black Americans don't believe they've ever been really truly integrated into American society. And it's a trigger word because everywhere they turn, they see the kind of history of not only slavery, but just the discrimination
Sure.
and the racism that's really structured in a lot of systems. But I believe in compassion. I believe that our country, if they see the pain and the hurt that is caused by this, that things will change. And dehumanizing people based on their ethnicity, it just so is un-American and something that we need to really be aggressive about. You hear people say war on terror. Well, this is a war on the hate rhetoric that we're allowing to resonate in our communities. They win when we allow that to come into our neighborhoods. It's disturbing, and I don't want my son to ever question that he's an American. He was born here, and it goes beyond that, because I have Americans that were born here that don't act American. No, really, and we're talking about Donald Trump. We're talking about others that say things and go after people that are disabled. We don't do that, and we can't allow them to I mean, it's hard to see the international community see that as American. I hope they know Donald Trump is not the typical American.
what do you say to someone who sees what's happening in Paris, who sees what's happening all over the world, unfortunately, under the auspices of this horrific group of people who claim to do their deed under, religious auspices, who we obviously know are terrorists.
Yeah.
But what do we say to those people who see this and who really don't understand and who do not have the knowledge and who do have a real fear? How do we approach them, and how do we give them a sense of reality, basically, and who these people are and why they're there, and that the fact of the matter is that us as Americans, if we could make a phone call and say, hey, stop this, we would, but how do we resonate that as a conversation, that we are just as victimized and just as angry
absolutely.
and just as fearful of, the terrorism that is going around. So how do we start that conversation?
I think you address, and this is something that we struggle with all the time, is how do we address the fear? People are scared of who we are. They're scared of Muslims, they're scared of Arabs. They see a woman with a hijab and they have
Automatically,
negative images. They see the name Muhammad, again, scared, fearful. How do you address that? Again, you look at the African American community who's like, I walk by and a woman kind of grabs her purse. I think we challenge that by, we underestimate the human contact. What we saw at the forum was a huge, beautiful, diverse community. But not everybody's blessed like Dearborn that you can have access to a Muslim American or an Arab American. A lot of
African American,
exactly.
Asian American. It's a very diverse community.
Yeah, especially Metro Detroit area. Alone in Southwest Detroit, you have 20 different ethnicities. Not everybody can live in the true America that I see every single day when I come out of my home.
There was a time in Dearborn you had 45 different languages spoken.
I heard in the south end of Dearborn.
Absolutely, 45. And I lived that era. It was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful.
But it made you much more compassionate towards those, no matter anybody's faith.
Absolutely, I do believe to this day I'm colorblind and faith blind, basically. And you look at people as people rather
their
than
character,
rather than what they look like and where they're coming from. But also, it made me learn to embrace different cultures and enrich my life because of those cultures rather than fearing it. And I think that's the concept that we're dealing with today.
Right now, you hear all of us say this, terrorism is not owned by one faith. We saw that in Colorado recently with the shooting at the clinic. Again, that person is using faith to go and kill people in the name of God.
Right, in righteousness.
Yes, and so...
We're talking about the Planned
Parenthood incident.
attacks.
Yes, and you even see that with so many different things, including the gentleman that walked into Charleston, North Carolina, and shot up those people in church that was there praying to God, at a higher, being a place of worship. It is extremely scary for all of us. I think we're all very fearful that when I say to people, terrorism is not owned by one faith, and they kind of look like, well, how do we stop it? Because it's easier to try to kind of, right?
Compartmentalize and say, okay, well, this is what we need to fear, rather than something that's a little bit more broader.
We just need to all work together. I think this is a global crisis, and we have a common enemy, right? And that is people that want to kill. In the name of whatever they claim. So many people tell me, oh, this person goes to all these. I was like, I highly doubtful that the Paris attacker went to a mosque every Friday. You and I know if they really were believers, they would not have killed those people. And so
it's an oxymoron, basically, to say Islamic terrorist or to say suicidal Muslim. Obviously, we all know that, and I think that's maybe what needs to be addressed in regards to, this is more of, and I'm putting my own personal touch on this, but it is a political agenda rather than a religious one, and most of these individuals are from all over. They're not just from one area or one background, and so, and I think that's what needs to be on the table. It needs to be, it's education, and it's educating yourself about, you know, the realities and about the political process to understand why this is happening, rather than the fact that this is a religious war. It's not a religious war.
And again, going back, people really want to just fix it. I mean, we all do. It's funny, every time it hurts like crazy, every time an attack happens and I see victims, I want to mourn, but I can't, because now I have to go and talk to the media and say, please, don't make this about refugees. It has nothing to do about, like, 50% of the Syrian refugees are children. You know, trying to blame one community because it's easier, and we're scared, so it's just something to do quick, fast. Let's fix this now. Let's stop them from coming in. Let's go after Muslims. Let's watch over them. That has to be the answer. But you said it isn't, and all of us, if we really united and worked together towards this, we would be able to stop so much violence from happening in our country and around the world. The more that we talk to each other, and the more we try to, you know, be compassionate towards the human toll that happens with a lot of things that are happening.
Absolutely. Just really quick, Governor Schneider has sort of changed his view on bringing in Syrian refugees, and I guess people need to realize that, you know, bringing in these individuals, they are actually running away from, you know, the terrorists and from a total destruction of their country. But the vetting process is over 180 days.
Yes. And
they go through, you know, 12
I've
or
seen
13
them up to 3 years waiting. Yeah.
Different, you know, stages.
It's about 13 different stages.
Absolutely. So it's a very, very concise, very, you know, grueling kind of vetting process.
It's not only one security background check. There's 3 of them, and very rigorous.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that needs to be taken into consideration.
And I think it's really critical to understand too that you know, Governor Snyder coming out like that set this huge trend. We were the first in the country. He also has great relationships with people that work on refugee resettlement. You know, I think picking up the phone and talking to those individuals, talking about his fears. He obviously had some sort of fears and wants to protect our state, but it also was in many ways irresponsible because it indirectly divided our state. People started pointing the fingers at refugees because by him saying that, that's exactly what people thought is this refugee that's my neighbor, or is this refugee resettlement agency down the street now housing terrorists? And so it's really critical that those that are elected in these positions are very careful and responsible in how they approach these.
Absolutely, and it is a balance of doing the right thing and a balance of making sure that people know we're trying to keep everything secure. So, you know, that conversation does continue. Rashida, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for all your insight, your hard work, and just keep up the good work. And they call you the People's Advocate, and I definitely second that emotion.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all for being with us today.